Welcome back to another edition of Be the Change Georgia, where we're all about sharing the stories of the purpose-led leaders surrounding the B Corp community who are proving that making a profit and making a difference aren't mutually exclusive ideas. Today, Nathan Stuck sits down with Kevin Rogers, the founder and managing director of SHWAXX Laboratories in Atlanta, Georgia. After serving 30 years as a licensed master barber, instructor, barbershop owner, and Barber Trade Journal publisher, he founded SHWAXX Laboratories with the mission of building healthier self-images through the art and science of natural hair. Nathan unpacks Kevin's founding story and how the consciousness of his surroundings, the pursuit of new relationships, and the intersection of family, purpose, and priorities led him down an incredible journey. Since 2016, SHWAXX Labs has now handcrafted and sold more than 10,000 units of its products, grossing over $250,000 in sales, and that pace shows every sign of acceleration. If you want to learn more about how to plug into this incredible B Corp community, visit blocalgeorgia.com. Okay, let's jump into the episode with Kevin Rogers. Take it away, Nathan.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the show today. Kevin Rogers, founder and CEO of SHWAXX. Super excited, because, we met and then I immediately ordered a bunch of your product. So while nobody can see me today, but I'm wearing a baseball cap, so I don't have it in my hair today. And we've joked before where I ordered the industrial size shampoo and conditioner. So I'll be using your products for quite some time. I'm glad I like them. So welcome to the show today, Kevin. We're excited to have you and hear your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, today we're going to kind of talk about, we obviously before all of these and we've gotten to know each other, but we kind of try to plan out a central theme and yours was pretty easy. Came to the surface very early of your journey to falling in love with service to others and kind of this parallel journey of lifelong learning that has led you to where you are today. So hopefully we can unpack a lot of that today in our time together. So we'll just kind of get rolling and I'll ask you kind of a more general open-ended question, but what do you wish everyone understood about your profession and purpose? And I think this probably goes back to your previous life as a master barber, but then even into entrepreneur today.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, what do I wish you all knew? I think the barber, customer, and product relationship is probably the central theme that I think the general public, I wish that more customers either bought products from their barber or cosmetologist, or even more specifically, barbers and cosmetologists made sure that they provided services outside of just the haircut with products. I think that synergy is important because a haircut is the last thing that happens, but the service through products extends to when the client leaves the shop. So through products, your service is extended because that haircut or that hairstyle is as fresh as it's going to be the minute he pops that or she pops that cape. Because at that moment, the hair is going to start growing and keeping that look only is going to last so long. So I wish that relationship between barber, cosmetologist, client, and product was more synergized, was a more deeper relationship.
I love that too, because I have a similar wish because I know I got some headshots done last year and I literally had an appointment to get my hair cut and then walked over to where I was doing the photo shoot because I knew it would never look as good.
Right. Yeah. And I think it also connects to, self-image. When we show them that mirror, product is in the shop generally. And, I personally and professionally, think that that's an important theme, not necessarily for the money, but I believe that products are a service too, like the haircut, the consultation, that's a service. But between cuts, that week, 2 weeks, month, depending on, how frequently that client or that, stylist client comes back, that relationship continues. So I think products they're a service too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes us, it's a perfect lead in to kind of going back and unpacking your story of how you even, and I know we joked about this in the planning call, but how you got into and I didn't even share my bad haircut story, by the way. How you got into learning to cut hair, and then kind of whatever we want to call it, the college side hustle leading into a profession, and then kind of discovering everything you just talked about, which has now brought you to product. So if you want to tell a little bit of that story, and then also kind of the influence. I know there was somebody who kind of came into your life in college and kind of taught you not just how to make some money, but how to make a living as you did this. So
yeah, my experience was during those formidable years, 12, 13-year-old, and how important self-image really is to, teens, and got a bad haircut when I needed it most. It was just, I was kind of attached to my hair at that time, like waves, and how I looked, and was becoming aware of my self-image. And one bad haircut just ripped at that. And I had $20, and $7 of it went to the bad haircut. And I spent the 13 on a pair of clippers, and, actually fell in love over the next 3 or 4 years with that process of cutting the hair growing back, cutting the hair again. And I became my first client. And what was attached to that was my self-image. So I took a hold of my self-image in that process. And then people began to notice that I cut my hair. And from friends at my church to neighbors, to when I did finally get to college, and my roommates, it was 4 of us in our room, and they saw me cut my hair, and it was on like, what? You can, wow, hey, cut my hair. And I was sharing that my room, Scott Hall, 2nd floor, my door 203 right by the phone. So one wing was the basketball team, other wing was the football team, baseball team. Everybody would center around those phones, and people saw me cutting. And one young guy, I cut his hair. He had a really good haircut. He told, the barber across the street from my dorm, hey, the guy on the 2nd floor cut my hair. He happened to be a Kappa Alpha Psi. And he had a barbershop called Capital, Kappatl Cuts. And he was like, hey, how much are you making cutting hair in the dorm? And for me, it was, I bought a pair of tennis shoes. I could eat McDonald's, didn't have to eat food, could go to the mall, buy a pair of jeans or whatever. But, $3 a cut was my hustle. And he said, no, give me that 3. And his name was Junius Thompson, and still a mentor of sorts to this day. And he was like, give me the 3, you keep 5. I charge 8 at my barbershop, and you will be a Black man with a business. Isn't that why you came to Norfolk State University? And at 17 years old, it made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. And he instilled the entrepreneurial spirit, like he fortified that in me. For me, it was just my self-image. But at that point, I became responsible in a way for other people's self-image. And so that was my introduction to the service of barbering, the service of it. And I ended up having a barbershop at 19, a Capital Cuts franchise. I sold that, did some other entrepreneurial, efforts, but ended up in Atlanta, Georgia in 1993. And when I got here, barbering took a warp speed. Like I was cutting hair on Brockett Road. I was literally making $1,200 a week, $120, $10 haircuts. We were the only barbershop at Brockett Road in Ponce de Leon. It was a booming area. And that's when barbering, the light came on, like, man, you are a master barber and you can make a living doing this. And opened up a shop soon thereafter, Metro Cut and Curls. That was my second franchise, or the second shop that I owned, but the one that I started. And it was definitely an experience. And so, barbering led me for a good 20 years here down the road of service equals purpose, right? There was a synergy between what I provided and what I was able to receive. And being a barber for a first child's haircut, or cutting someone hair before they transition, and that everything else in between became part of me. And so my education in life came in that barber entrepreneurial space. And I feel like I graduated of sorts into product. One thing I felt funny about being a barber for 30 years, you feel like, okay, is this it? Where do I grow? And I had gotten my instructor's license, barber instructor's license in the process, and had to read my barber textbook as an instructor. Now, not as a student, but to teach it to other people. And that's when I actually learned, well, a barber can be more than just a barber. A barber can be a barbershop owner. Like, yeah, okay, I get that. You could also be a trade journal writer. Like, we don't have a trade journal. I started Barber Matrix, so switch after switch, or you can be a product. One of my biggest advertisers was SHWAXX Laboratories. They had Organic Root Stimulator, which was a product line out of Chicago. They flew me up to Blue Island, and I got acclimated to the whole product manufacturing idea and how important a magazine and mass communications and how that relationship worked. And that inspired me to actually create a barber product. But I didn't jump on it until after I went to a barbershop in New York for an interview, Paul Mole Barbershop, which Paul Mole was an Italian barber who created a brushless shaving cream. And I saw his lineage. Really, these were the things that kind of prodded me, poked me, pushed me to think, okay, there's more to barbering than just standing behind the chair. There's a big world out there that you can be a part of, that service, the service of products. And that's how SHWAXX Laboratories came into being.
I love going back. I'm one of those people I always use. I don't know if I stole the quote from somewhere, probably, but you're where you're supposed to be. How life works itself out, that literally a bad haircut when you were a kid, like, dude, you always think, and you get so stuck in the moment, you see things as so negative, and right. Man, dude messed my hair up. I still remember my dad giving me a racing stripe. I had the like Miami high top fade back in the day, and I would do the sides by myself. I mean, you just come up to the line, but I couldn't get to the back, and my dad forgot to put the guard on. And just yelled out for my mom, and she came in and let out some expletives and goes, "Richard, what did you do to him?" And we had to bring the back line up really high. Anyway, I did not end up. That was my I'm never cutting my own hair again. That was my life. But that's so amazing too, because I hear, as I listen to that story, it's not only the people who the person who gave you the motivation that I'm not paying people, I'm doing this myself, but also the people who kind of took you under their wing. And then your own curiosity that just kind of led you to like, what else? Yeah. Because you've even called kind of barbering is almost like a ministry of service, but like, as you've evolved product, from barber to, trade journals and now making product, like, what has changed as far as like leadership and your perspective, your approach to business? Like, how has that evolved as both you as a person have grown, but also your business?
Man, well, I'll say it to you like this. I learned that barbers are not all the same, right? Like, we tend to think, okay, because I'm a barber and you're a barber, we think alike, when in reality, we could be totally nothing alike. I learned that, subculture. There's culture, there's subculture. There is a culture of barbering, but there are many subcultures within the barbering industry. And so learning, how to speak, in the various subcultures is extremely important. When I published the Barber Trade Journal, I remember I was going around from shop to shop, and I would take my magazine, or at the beginning, it was more like a newsletter. Then I actually started printing, and, that was exciting. But in the early stages, I was just dropping it off and wasn't getting any feedback. And then I remember I went to a shop, and a young man looked at the magazine, and he was like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And, my reaction was like, read it. He was like, but I know what I'm doing. I'm a bar, I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help. And I was floored, because here I am thinking I'm helping you, but what I had to realize is that there are cultures, like I said, subcultures within barbering, and you have to really, one guy looked at me and he said, "Hey man, you know what you need? You need to make this like Jet magazine. You need to have like a bathing beauty in there." And I was just like, "No, man, this is about the art, the science, the economics, the social responsibility of barbering." And they were looking at me like, "No, it's not why I'm here." So I had to kind of drop in leadership. I had to drop my thinking. I had to abandon what I believed for truth. And that's not always an easy thing to do, letting go of what I believe for what the truth is. The truth is there is a wide variety of barbers, and they're at various stages and various educational levels and cultural dispositions. And so being able to reach them takes a much broader way of thinking if your goal is to genuinely reach them. And so that's something that I had to evolve as I use that word leader, very cautiously, because, you have to have people following you, you know what I mean? Like to actually lead them. But I think there's a way to be effective at sharing and impacting others. And I believe I'm learning that. I'm in the process of that.
If anything, it's like a great lesson on empathy as well, of understanding other people's situations. And there is something fun about getting older and getting wiser and learning things like that along the way of like, what if I listened to people more than I just projected my opinion, assuming everybody thinks like I do.
Word.
It's one of those things. No, I don't want to be young again. I'm enjoying this journey. So
yeah, big time.
And then at some point too, you got involved with I can never pronounce it correctly, Goizueta Business School and Emory's. I should have just said Emory, with their Start Me program. And I'm just kind of curious of like what drew you to it, and then how has it impacted you as both an entrepreneur and kind of along that leadership. I'm using journey too much, but I can't think of a better synonym.
I'm kind of embarrassed because truthfully, I knew absolutely nothing about Start Me. Like my daughter was an athlete at Charles R. Drew Charter School in Eastlake. Shout out to the Eastlake Foundation and that whole crew. And my daughter played soccer and she ran cross country and she was a cheerleader. And so for me, I was always going to some event at Drew. So I'm always going to other schools and I'm seeing banners from a plumber to a car dealership to, Coca-Cola on the fence. So I'm like, I want my banner. I want a SHWAXX banner on a soccer field. I want, that was my thinking. And that was all I cared about. I didn't look, I was in hustle mode. I'm like, I'm going to get a banner on a soccer field, soccer field. So I had put the word out, and I was going to a principal's coffee. And he, I asked the principal, hey, how can I put a banner on the soccer field? And he kind of chuckled. He's like, well, hey, there's this meeting that they're having over at the East Lake Commons. Maybe you might want to go to that, and maybe they can help you do that. I go to this meeting, and it's a Start Me cohort meeting. And I'm sitting in there, and they're talking about, if you have a business and you want to get better at it, why don't you sign up and apply for this really wonderful accelerator that we got going on? And I'm like, can anybody here tell me how to put a banner on the soccer field? And they're looking at me like, no, but we can help you with a business plan. And I was like, I don't want a business plan. I want to put a banner on the soccer field. That was how I walked into that room, like literally. And they just kept chipping away at things that made sense. Like, if you don't have a business plan, then you don't really have a plan to succeed. Like, do you have goals? What are your goals next week? Like, do you have capital? Do you, where, it just, one question after the next started hitting me upside the head. Like, dummy, you don't have any of that. You might have one or two, but it's 10 things they said. That led me to actually applying. And I sat down, and it was a really, really cool application because it basically made me do like this preliminary business plan on a page, right? Like just really 4 quadrants that I actually had to think about it. And that thinking, that spark is how I connected with Start Me. And man, the rest is like history. I mean, it went from getting accepted to Start Me. I remember I had just dropped my daughter off at Savannah State, and we were driving back, and I got the call from Brian like, hey, we want to invite you to be a part of our 2018 cohort. And I was like, what? Like, really? Like, you guys think I could? Yeah, of course we do. Looking forward to see, and graduating through that program was awesome. Like every Tuesday we would break bread with mentors. Like, my group, I had someone in construction, someone in hotels, someone that was like a lender. I had a corporate lawyer in my group, and every Tuesday they were looking me dead in the eye like, what are you trying to do? What is it that you want to do? Well, how are you going to, what's your plan, Kevin? What do you, and they were relentless. They were just like, hey, if you really want to do what you say you want to do, you got to have a plan. Your business plan, you're going to have to do the numbers. Come on, where's the accounting? It was just an overload. And when it ended and I graduated, I was just like, wow. And then Emory had another group, Consult Your Community, CYC, was a group of students who wanted to be business analysts. And then they sat down, and I was really fortunate because I was having withdrawal, after 14 weeks of being inundated with information and challenging me. Then I move over to, what do I do? I need help. Like, I don't want to stop this. And CYC kicked in. And then Emory EIIG, the Impact Investment Group, they ended up kicking in, and I ended up being awarded it was a $10,000 loan, which helped me expand on all of the things that I had done in Start Me, all of the planning and SMART goals that I had set. And then that moved me to actually expanding my business. And it is, because it's still going, it's an amazing process being a part of that family, man. Start Me literally changed my business mentality big time.
Another crazy example that we keep getting. I mean, and maybe these, and I think everybody probably has that story, but like, they say luck is I forget now. Of course, I'm gonna draw a blank on the quote, but luck is when hard work and determination, when like meet opportunity.
Right.
And you were doing that, and you were putting yourself in a chance to be successful, and you were asking the right questions, and then But then luckily you just really wanted a banner at a soccer field, and it's like you
all I wanted. I just wanted a banner.
But it is, man. It's just funny how life works out when you're working hard and putting yourself in a position to be successful, that those opportunities have their unique way of finding you. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's stealing the thunder from one of my last questions for you, but for purpose-led social entrepreneurs, whatever popular phrase we want to throw out there that's going around right now, what advice would you have for somebody in your shoes, maybe early 20s, kind of starting something, or maybe even late 30s, late 40s is going out into that world? What advice would you give them?
Cool. I say this not to chase performance. I know that's a kind of a hard pill to swallow, but not chasing performance, being conscious of what's going on around you, being conscious of the problem that you would like to solve as an entrepreneur, being prepared to adapt. And I don't want to convolute it with a whole lot of other stuff, but I think chasing performance can be dangerous. It cannot end good. If you have like a sincere passion for something, that will not lead you wrong. Like, if you want to help others, if you really see a problem and you want to solve and be a part, because you may not be able to solve the problem, but you might want to be a part of the solution. You can be, and not to ever give up on that. You might have to adjust how you view your participation. You might have to drop some illusions of grandeur, but yeah, don't chase performance, and be prepared to adjust along the way. That's something that it's like breathing. You take in, you give out. You have to be able to adjust to fit. A lot of times we want to do it on our own. We let our passion overrule our intellect, and I believe it's a balance between the two. I really do. I don't know how to encapsulate it and put a button on it, but that's what I'm learning. That's where I am at this point in the journey, and hopefully that'll translate to someone who hears.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what you talked about earlier too, with some of the, it wasn't exactly your verbatim quote, but listen more than you're speaking. Like you've been a student, you've collected mentors and advisors and friends and trusted people that you can bounce ideas off of, and when something isn't working and your passion wants that to be the product or the service, not letting that passion get in the way when maybe you do need to pivot, I think is a great way to kind of, even for you as your career has evolved into kind of like, this is the product. And I know even lately there's been even a slight pivot. So, all right, before I let you go, I love to ask this question to everybody, but what's the one question you wish I had asked you?
Oh, family. Like, where does family fit in to business? Like, how does family fit into this walk as an entrepreneur? Because, in my life, it has been central to every single solitary move that I've ever made. It always has centered around family. My wife, then my daughters, now my mom. I think as entrepreneurs, I won't put it on anybody else, but I've always had to wrestle with, some of my earlier failures in the entrepreneurship efforts because of not putting that as prominent as it should have been, family. So anytime we talk entrepreneurship, I think we always have to make sure that we incorporate them into our thinking.
Yeah, striking that balance as well. Yeah. Talking about, what the successful business plan. And you see that a lot of times where it's like, if you're not taking into account too your time and time spent with family and time spent with loved ones and time spent on yourself.
Yeah.
You don't really have a successful business plan yet.
No, you don't.
Awesome. Yeah. I feel like we could go on for hours, but
yeah,
we're working on a time limit. So Kevin, as always, I appreciate it. I'm always excited when I have conversations with people that I have conversations with, that we get to now take one of those and make it public so everybody gets to listen into us, talking about entrepreneurship and leadership, and just grateful to have gotten to know you, grateful for you to have unpacked your story. And Kevin, if people want to get in touch with you, follow you, what are the best ways to do that?
On Instagram, if they want to follow our journey, Instagram at SHWAXX brand. And, that's always a good place to catch us. We're always trying to, put up something that it goes to all of my other accounts. I'm an Instagrammer. I Facebook through Instagram. Like everything that I put on Instagram, it goes to my Twitter, it goes to my, and that's kind of, I think Instagram is a great place to start.
And I'm, unlike you, I'm a LinkedIn only.
Gotcha.
Instagram for my Christmas decorations, but we'll follow you anyway. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to end this podcast without saying B Corp at least once, but I'm looking forward to that part of your journey as well. Kevin, thanks again for coming on today, and just always a pleasure to share these conversations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Be the Change Georgia. We're grateful for this opportunity to serve you with this content and grow this incredible community of purpose-driven B Corp leaders. If you haven't already, we would be grateful for you to rate this show wherever you get your podcast by simply tapping the number of stars you think it deserves and sharing it with a friend. This helps us get the word out and continue to use our collective influence as a force for good. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help from our production team at Chat with Leaders Media. Learn how you can launch your own podcast or grow your business at chatwithleaders.com. Thanks again for listening. Now go and be a leader worth following.